the issue of all the icebreakers. I think, can you commit to this committee to give let's call it a every 6 months update on the Polar Security Cutter and the Great Lakes Security Cutter that you just mentioned? I think it would be good to have regular updates on those acquisitions and building programs.
No, I commit to providing regular updates. Thank you.
Okay. Let me turn to the commercially available. This was the idea. Started in the Trump administration. This committee was supporting it. The Biden administration continued it. The idea of purchasing a commercially available icebreaker to fill this gap in the 2022 Coast Guard Authorization Act. We authorized the transfer of NOAA land in Juneau to the Coast Guard, which the Coast Guard would use to home port the commercial icebreaker once it's purchased in addition to other activities. Can you provide an update on the NOAA land transfer in Juneau that will support home porting an icebreaker, and perhaps give a timeline more broadly on, assuming we get the appropriation this year for that purchase, what would you see as kind of the timeline? I know we have other infrastructure needs. I can confidently say between this committee and the Appropriations Committee that we will be able to support what the Coast Guard needs for that. But finally getting an icebreaker in America's Arctic is going to be really important, not just for Alaska, but for America. As I mentioned, we are getting, in terms of strategic competition and great power competition in the Arctic, it's not even close. We need presence. We need ships. We need icebreakers in particular.
Yeah, I am 100% committed to the commercially available icebreaker, and when appropriated, we look forward to operating that vessel on behalf of the nation. Once the appropriation is made and we're able to procure the icebreaker, and you alluded to it, right there will be some initial work that needs to be done on the vessel to bring it to an initial operating capacity and allow us to begin operating it in the Arctic. And we're working to understand cost for life cycle cost and maintenance cost with regard to that vessel, and we'll continue to work in the committee as we work to field that critical capacity needed now for the nation. We are working through the real property acquisition discussions. I can provide with you a timeline as to where we actually are with regard to the property in Juneau. As you know, we saw it recently on our trip up there, and look forward to providing the committee with the timeline and financial support needed to ensure that we've got infrastructure in place to operate an icebreaker in the high north.
Great. Well, just keep us posted. We want to stay ahead of that on this committee. We don't want to be the ones behind on that. Let me ask another question. The 2022 Coast Guard Authorization Act contained a key provision from my Arctic Focus Act directing the Coast Guard to report on the ability to conduct a transit of the Northern Sea Route and periodic transits of the Northwest Passage. What are the capabilities of the Coast Guard to make a Northern Sea Route transit, and what lessons can be learned from the recent Northwest Passage transit?
So we continue to operate the icebreaking capacity we have. Healy, our medium icebreaker, will depart, or has departed, or will depart Seattle shortly for another transit through the high latitudes and Arctic. Lessons were learned from her last transit, which was a complete circumnavigation, and happy to provide you and your staff with any lessons or insights with regard to Healy's recent operations. As Polar Security Cutter comes online, it'll obviously create more opportunity and capacity for that kind of presence and learning opportunity as we operate more persistently in the high latitudes.
Great, thank you. Let me ask, turning to another acquisition program. The Coast Guard has done much to recapitalize its fleet over the last 15 years. I want to compliment the Coast Guard. The National Security Cutters and the Fast Response Cutters are performing way above expectations and are doing great work for this country. However, the OPC program is significantly behind schedule. Can you provide an update to that, Admiral? And are you confident that the recent timelines that you have put forward on OPC delivery, including the two which, as I mentioned, will be home ported in Kodiak, are coming online soon enough? And again, the NSCs and the fast response cutters are doing a great job, and perhaps you might want to touch on that as well.
Yeah, thank you. The national security cutters have been we've been operating them for 10+ years now and have been incredibly capable ships, and you know that we are able to periodically operate the national security cutters in the Bering and other locations, just providing great capability and presence. Fast response cutters, same kind of increased capability and capacity. And, you know, we'll have fast response cutters. We have fast response cutters operating in the state of Alaska. The offshore patrol cutter that Argus is OPC-1. We have experienced some delays in the launch of OPC-1. There was a shafting issue that's resulted in a delay of several weeks, and we believe Argus will be launched by the end of this year, and that's a likely year delay in delivery date. OPC and Polar Security Cutter are my two top acquisition priorities. They're absolutely essential to the nation. The offshore patrol cutter is replacing, you know, ships that are 50+ years old, the 210-foot cutters and 270-foot cutters, and so continuing to move forward with speed and intent on the OPC is a priority for the organization. I look forward to seeing Argus in the water soon.
Great, thank you.